Broadcasting live from our studio in Boston with presentations from prominent industry vendors, Solutions Review presents Data Demo Day, a virtual trade show for data management and analytics.
I'm Doug Atkinson here at Solutions Review, and welcome to another Data Demo Day. Today we're going to look at two solutions that solve the deeper challenges organizations face when implementing data analytics and business intelligence systems. Specifically, we're going to dig into a couple of companies that are delivering next-level data discovery and data replication solutions that power analytics tools with the best available data inputs in complex environments. First up is Octopai, a metadata management platform that leverages automation to get the full story on your data. It's cross-platform, so you can see the entire BI landscape, and it's in the cloud, so it can be up and running quickly. And joining us today is CEO and co-founder of Octopai, Amnon Drori. Amnon, thanks for being with us.
Hi, thank you for having me today.
Well, it's great that you're here. Before we get into your demo, when I get a chance to talk to a co-founder, I'm always curious. What was the problem you were looking to solve when you decided to start Octopai?
I'll have to go a couple of years back. I remember in the previous company that I was working with, I was going to this management meeting showing off that we had acquired 35 new clients in the past quarter. But unfortunately, the CFO was sitting next to me showing the same report showing that we had acquired only 22. And the CEO was looking at the both of us, two executives, and he was saying, how come this guy is saying 35 and this guy is saying 22? That's 13 new clients differences on a $500,000 deal on average. Somebody owes me $4 million in this room. And that was the funny part. The sad part that it took us about 3 weeks to find out that something had happened in the BI that eventually led to the fact that my report was better or more accurate than the CFO. But 3 weeks we had to wait for the final result.
Well, I think that's a perfect jumping off point. And when I come back, we'll get into a QA session. But really, right now, I'm going to let you get at it and give your demo, and we'll talk to you in about 30 minutes.
Great. So thank you for the opportunity. So I'm going to start off with a couple of slides just to give you some perspective about Octopai. When you look at the typical organization, at least from the enterprise perspective, there's hundreds and thousands of data consumers, what we call data users, who take decision based on data. And this is not new. It has been for years all along. The problem is that shipping data from the data sources, meaning where the applications actually exist, to the data consumers or the data users, in most cases runs through a very smart team that is called business intelligence team. This is where I was kind of related to. The problem is that when you ship data from the data sources to the data consumers, the data runs through a couple of things that involve ETL tools, data warehouse tools, analysis services tools, and reporting tools. And to make it a little bit more spicy, they are probably ensembled with different vendors. So you can see in this type of a landscape, Microsoft and SAP and Teradata and Snowflake and Azure Data Factory and Tableau and Qlik and Sysint. I mean, so many different vendors. And at the end of the day, the BI is responsible to run the data from the data sources through all of these tools until that business user will be able to see a certain data point, which happens to me. And in most business users are not even aware of the complexity of shipping accurate data from the data sources to the data consumers. And as you would see, there are so many reports in typical organizations that run through a lot of BI platforms like ETLs and data warehouse and reporting tools involving hundreds of applications. And not all the data runs through the BI landscape. And this is kind of the value chain. This is a supply chain of taking a single piece of data all the way to the reporting tool. And if you would talk to those organizations and ask them, what is it that you spend so much time every day analyzing this BI landscape, they will tell you, here are some of the questions. Where's my report? I don't know which tool runs that specific report, which happens to me as well. Why or where did the error come from? Why am I expecting to see $39,000 commission where I only get $27,000 commission? What's my EBITDA? How many patients do we have? What is our revenue? What is the sales cycle? What is customer references? And so many different questions that through the past 4 years, we've been helping organizations, our clients, to answer some of these questions. So even regardless to what infrastructure you have, you probably recognize one or two or three or even some more questions that you see in front of you that probably you ran through in your business life. The problem is that it takes a long time to try to be able to answer those questions by analyzing the data movement process within a very complex environment in the BI. So here's one question or the first question I would like to ask the audience. And this is some of the questions that we also involve within our clients. Here's the first question to you. What's your data team's biggest challenge? If you look at your everyday operation in the business intelligence, servicing your business people, is that around the BI and analytics daily operation, understanding where data is coming from, where is it going because of data error? You want to understand the impact of changes because there's a lot of business requests coming in and you would like to respond to them on a timely fashion? Is that has to do with more of migration or moving from one system to another? Case in point that we've been involved with, moving from an on-prem reporting tool to a cloud reporting tool, moving from an old data warehouse system to a more modern one. So how do you ship that data or structure from an old system to another system? What about compliance? You're under GDPR, CCPA, you have been required to mask some of the PIIs, not only in the data sources, but also in the BI. So where do I find data element or a column called age or gender or credit card or first name or address? Where does it exist within my entire landscape? And what similar names that specific data element carry that I need to be aware of not to be exposed under regulations or compliance as part of my auditing? And most important, something that happened recently has to do with data dictionary, data catalog, BI catalog, business glossary, pick a name. If I'm a business user and I want to create a report that has to do with an address, what does it mean, an address? Is that a shipping address or a billing address or the headquarter address? What does it mean, an address or a client or a customer or product name? So all of this information exists in the application on the IT side, but also on the BI side. So I'm going to move on, and we're going to share with you the results later, but thank you for answering or addressing or sharing your view about these questions. So here are some of the most popular business intelligence systems that we have been analyzing, and we've seen that popularly being an inherited part of BI infrastructure. Some of this you recognize either you are planning on using or existing usage today, or enriching your BI environment with what you already see here and additional things. And today, each one of these systems is mainly managed separately. And what we've decided to do is to look at the problem in a different way, in a disruptive way. Why do we need to invest so much time in understanding each one of these tools separately, rather than having a system or a platform that will analyze everything for me? I'm interested in results. I'm interested in getting answers, not to work so hard in being able to be in a position to get answers. And this is where this idea came from. Why do we have to analyze each system separately? That each system is doing different things to the data of different vendors. I want to have a magical button where I'm going to click something that will analyze the entire landscape for me. I want to get results. So this is where analyzing the entire BI platform enables you to enjoy the analyzed information and shrink wrap it in capabilities that are very, very deep and very good tools to continue manage and understand insights about your BI landscape. One of them is data discovery, just to understand where columns exist, where the data exists, where calculation exists, where formulas exists, where certain field or data element exists if you want to mask them. And this is really critical because you want to find out where all the data elements exist, and you don't want to miss each one of them or some of them. If you want to understand the relationship, the data flow, or the data movement process between all of these tools and in a single tool individually, and understand where does data come from and where is it going. In our past 4 years in the business, we've recognized four key questions that are being asked every day. Where data is coming from, where is it going, where does it exist, and what this data means when I look at this data. What should I expect when I'm asking to see a certain data element? And this is the data lineage. You probably heard about it. Our view of data lineage is that you have to really deep dive, dig, and understand the metadata through its facets, the administrative metadata, the technical metadata, the business metadata, and combine it with a very rich BI environment of different vendors. It becomes almost impossible to really automatically manage this in a very, very easy way. And another outcome of understanding the information about the data, or what we call metadata, is the ability to explain, when you look at a certain data element, what do you mean? What do you see? And this is where the business glossary and a lot of good things that can come out of it. So we believe that you should not look for a single capability, rather than look at the BI and as a whole and equip yourself with different tools that collectively help you to manage your BI landscape. This is the data dictionary, the data discovery, the data lineage, the business glossary, the version management of metadata as it frequently changes, and even more importantly, understanding insights about your BI that will help you understand things that you don't know that you don't know. So in short, we collect metadata or information about the data from a variety of tools. We're native cloud, which means that from your perspective as a client, you need to invest only 20 minutes to extract the metadata, upload this to your Octopai instance, and then within 24 hours to 48 hours, you get an access to use our tools like data lineage, discovery, catalog, to help you address these use cases, mostly done by these wonderful role people. And we do this cross-platform, easy to start on the cloud. Let's continue with some interesting use cases, which I will be more than happy to hear your opinion about. If you've ever ran into this kind of use case, and I distinguish between the business lingo and the BI lingo. And the BI is, I need to be able to trust data. They don't understand what they see, and they want to make sure that they are taking the right decisions based on that data. In the BI language is, how do I find the exact ETL process that relates to landing the data on that BI report? Now, in some cases, you have such a complex environment that it's really difficult to do reverse engineer from the report backwards. So here's a question for you. How long do you think, or when you look back at the type of lineage things that you needed to create it manually or semi-automatically, take a report and understand where data is coming from in a rich environment. How long did it take you, or in average, how long would it take to create lineage capabilities or relationship map from the report through the transformations, through the database tables, and all the way to the exact name of the ETL? Would that take you a few minutes, few hours, few weeks, few months? Obviously, it has to do with the number of data sources or metadata sources that you have in the BI. And it would be great to understand your input. I'm going to show you some results in our demo in a second. Take another couple of seconds to answer that, but it will be really, really interesting. We're doing some surveys about that, and I can share with you also some other results. Thank you for that. We're going to move on to the next use case. Here's another one, understanding the impact of changes in advance. Let's say that you've been asked to ship more data from the data sources by updating a certain ETL to enrich the reports upstream. or you need to modify an ETL, or change the columns in the map as part of the ETL. And you probably want to understand the possible impact of those changes upstream. So this is something that we translate from the business lingo. I'm looking at my report, I don't see the data, I'm missing data. I know additional data had been created in the CRM and the marketing. Could you ship that data to my report? And then I need to do reverse engineering to understand from the report which the exact ETL I need to modify, and then do an impact analysis if I were to change that ETL. This is the BI lingo. So another question for you, last one. If you need to make changes in a field in an ETL or database, how long would it take you to identify all the places that this data element exists, and also to map all the direct and indirect relationship? If you were to change, modify, mask that specific ETL or data element, and you want to map all the possible implications that you need to be aware of prior to doing the changes, almost in the design phase. So take another few seconds to answer that. Thank you. And we can move on. So what I would like to do in the next 5-6 minutes is to take some of the use cases that we've talked about, understanding where data is coming from, where is it going, in practical terms, reverse engineer Lineage, forward Lineage to understand possible impacts, and we can go on and on with use cases. So I'm going to jump right over to our demo, and probably by now you can see 3 round circles. What you see in those circles is the following. We have a very small demo environment that is 1/10 of a typical client that we have. In here, you can see a collection of metadata that have been extracted, centralized, and analyzed by Octopai. This entire process to extract the metadata takes from you about 20 minutes, and for us, 24 hours to analyze, and then you get a link and you start using Octopai just like you see right now. In this case, you can see almost 400 ETL processes from several tools that are shipping data from the data sources and store them in about 2,500 database tables and views, SQL Server and Oracle and others. And there are 24 reports being generated in multiple BI tools, reporting tools, that are using the data that is stored in those 25 data warehouse tables and views. And that data is being shipped by running 389 ETL processes. Let's start the demo. So a business user called Doug is opening a ticket or address his data analyst. I'm looking at a report called customer product, and for some reason I'm expecting to see data and I don't see it. Can you find out if the report is showing all the data that I would expect to see? As an analyst, I would ask him, what is it that you expected to see? He said, I don't know. I know that there's more data. I know that we sold products, but I don't see them in my report. In the BI language is, I need to find the report where it's being generated throughout all of these reporting tools. I need to understand the structure, and I need to understand where the data within the data warehouse stores the data that then lands on that report. So let's start our journey. First of all, let's find the report. I'm going to go to the reporting section. I'm going to ask Octopai to find the report called Customer Products. So as I'm typing in, and again, all the landscape had been analyzed. You just need to browse Octopai. I found the report right here. But still, the second question is, which out of the 2,500 database tables and views? And the third question, which out of the 389 ETL processes are collectively relating to landing the data on that report? I don't want to do this manually. I don't want to talk to the DBA. I don't have any recordings or documentation. So you would go to Octopai and click a very nice button called Lineage and see what happens. So what you see here that took about 2 seconds is a full mapping of where the data came from all the way from the ETL processes, colored in light blue, which DB objects are actually storing the data, tables and views, and which reports I was looking for to do reverse engineering. What you see here is that this report is based on a view, and that view is based on these tables and views that are storing the data that runs through running an ETL in data stage, SSIS, and Informatica. If you have more than one ETL vendor, or you have multiple ETL processes gathered in one ETL, that makes it very, very difficult. If you don't have the right person that knows this specific journey or documentation, this may take you a few good hours to work with. Let's continue with the use case. When we ask our clients about this type of like 5 or 10 or type of multi-relationship data maps, they tell us that it will take anything from 3 to 4 hours to even a day. So then why would you want to do this manually? The second question that we ask them, how often do you do that? They say many times a day. So again, why would you want to continue to do this manually? Let's continue with the use case. Here's a different one. I'm using this report and I'm looking for additional data that I know had been created in the CRM. And I decided to enrich this ETL. So is that the ETL that is the source ETL to that report? Do I need to update the map inside this ETL? Is this the source ETL or the targeted ETL? So by clicking on that, I can see two arrows. This arrow is telling me that Octopai identified automatically things that are happening prior to that ETL, which means that this is immediately not a targeted a source ETL, it's a targeted ETL. By clicking on the button, I can go back and understand where the data landed in this ETL as it came from these tables. And by clicking on this one, I can go even further and understand the ETLs that are associated to landing the data on this table, which is a targeted ETL here. And I can go back and back and back. So my ability to navigate within this landscape, within the BI, is just a click of a button. And this is what we wanted to have as an experience. Let's continue with the use case. What if I've decided to change this ETL right here, this one? So I've decided to enrich the ETL by changing the columns. But I have a question. Is that the only report that is going to be impacted by changes that I'm planning on doing in this ETL? In other words, what would be the impact of changes that I need to know in advance prior to doing any changes that then may impact things that I'm not aware of that will be impacted by those changes? Clicking on here, I would click the lineage going forward, this button, and see what happens now. So now I get a different picture, which is a little bit more scarier. This ETL is impacting not only this report as we initially started. This is Doug's report, how we started this journey. It impacts all of these reports that you see in front of you, and some of them are even not an SSRS report. While this one is generated in SSRS, this one right here is generated in Business Object. So two different reports being named differently, generated for two business users, probably in different departments, in different vendors' BI reports, are going to be impacted by any change that I'm planning on doing here. Without this mapping here, you might suffer from lack of information about the impact of changes, or if you don't cover this map prior to doing any design changes, you might get phone calls from users in the future asking you questions about something happened to my report. Now, this lineage right here, which is kind of a little bit more difficult, may take you a couple of days of several people in collaboration, where you can get this in 3 seconds. And you can go on and on, traveling within this space of relationship between so many different objects. Just so you be aware, if you have 1,000 ETL processes shipping data to 10,000 tables and views that are being generated in thousands of reports, you might end up mapping tens of billions of point-to-point relationship that you need to be generated them on the fly when you have an instance. Why not using an automation software that will do this for you? The last thing I want to show you in this demo, being careful on time, is that the lineage that you see here is what we call lineage between systems. So this is a relationship map between ETL, databases, analysis services, and reporting. But there's also what we call deep lineage inside that specific tool. Let's dive in the lineage inside this ETL, for example. So double-clicking on that, I'm drilling inside this bubble. And I can find, in the language of SSIS, a container. What does it contain? It contains 4 different maps that are collectively shipping data from the data sources to the database tables. If you dive into, for example, one of the maps, what you will find is that there's lineage also in the level of the column. What it means that if you ask to see the lineage here in each one of these maps, you will be needing to have a very accurate documentation of each and every one of this map. How does a map look like? Let's try to see. This is how it looks like. This is a map on the column level where you can track a certain field. Another use case, masking a field. Where does it come from? From the table sources. What transformation or transformations a certain data element is going through. Where does it flow and where does it being exchanged, all the way to the destination table, and so on and so on. So your navigation is with a click of a button. It's collaborative. You can share, you can download, you can invite people that are using Octopai to see what you see. You can document it when you need it, and again, with a click of a button. The last thing I want to show you is the data discovery. Very, very useful when you want to find where a certain data element exists. Case in point, one of the insurance companies that we end up working with wanted to find a certain data element called license plate, because they wanted to make sure that it can contain additional tabs that has to do with the number of characters that represent a license plate. The only thing they had to do is, in this case, I'm going to choose another data element, and within a click of a button throughout the entire landscape, they could find where this specific data element exists in each one of the BI tools that they've been using in their own specific language, and you can drill all the way to the code line level to understand where that specific data element exists, so you can document it, you can share it, and you can understand where within the code of the SQL statement, for example, you can really expect to see that and how many times. In this case, we have found it hundreds and thousands of times in different areas within each one of these tools. The mapping is one of the most difficult, timely consuming in each one of the organizations that we end up working with. And the combination, as I said, the same metadata that you have can be presented as a discovery, in lineage, and in different ways. Oh, the last thing I want to show you, which is really cool. Here's an example of something really cool. I'm going to do the lineage here forward, and I want to show you a use case that probably you would recognize. I'm a business user of a report called Sales Report. Let's take this one. And I'm looking at my report, and I see that in this report, I'm going to do a lineage inside the business object, for example. And what I can see in my report is a column called full name. And I can see from the BI that it's a calculation of two physical data elements, first name and last name. So here's a question for you. Do you think that the full name exists only by concatenating first name and last name, or maybe I should expect to see the middle name? In order to answer this question, there are a couple of ways on manual digging, or simply go to the automatically generated business glossary, this button right here, and let's ask Octopai, after analyzing the metadata from the reporting tool, when you say full name, what should I expect to see? Here's the BO report, and what Octopai is showing you that initially the organization had created a data element called full name, and it's being created by Jeff Smith, telling you that you should expect to see the middle name as well. Here's the formula. And I should be able to expect that. It's a night and day if it wasn't designed to show the middle name, and then I have to update my ETL by identifying which ETL is relevant to shipping more data, and it could be a 2 months project. Or I can go to the glossary that indicates specifically there's an existing data element called middle name, and I can find it within Octopai in order to enrich a report without doing a project. Your ability to navigate, to understand what exists and what does not exist, and to be able to answer 4 questions. Where data is coming from? Where is it going? Where does it exist? And what does it mean when I look at a certain data element? It relies within understanding your BI. And our BI intelligence is something that we've automated in a way that will help our clients, and hopefully you, to leverage and turn weeks of work into seconds repetitively throughout the usage of Octopai. So with that said, I'll be happy to share any additional information. If you'd like to trial the product by analyzing your own metadata, as I said, 20 minutes of your time, we'll be more than happy to do so. It's like like an octopus, we're gonna fetch the metadata, we're gonna analyze it for you free of charge, so you can actually see and compare how would it look like to use Octopai versus how you've done this today. And as I promised, let's go to the poll results. Great. So if you remember the first use case, talked about, I'm gonna jump in, I'm gonna share with you this. So what's your data team's biggest challenges? Is that has to do with a regular operation, and this has to do with projects. And as you can see, the day-to-day operation is taking the most of the time of the BI, because, and it aligns with what we've been hearing from our clients throughout the past 3-4 years that kept on using Octopai almost on a daily basis. You don't know which use case you need to deal with. You don't know what the problem that you will need to deal with tomorrow, the next week. And when there is a problem, the clock is ticking and you need to respond fast. The question is, do you want to do it manually, or you want to do this automatically by using something like Octopai offers? And the second thing is modernization and understanding the data. So everybody hit all of the use cases, but the day-to-day is taking the most part of it. And this is, again, aligns with everything that we've seen so far. So thank you for sharing. Let's share the second one. The second one talked about a certain use case that has to do with how long does it take you to find a source in an error. And yeah, it takes a few hours. But when you have to do it so many times, you don't have enough hours in the day. So it varies between few hours to few weeks, depends on the complexity. But what's interesting here is that very, very explicitly you can see that it doesn't take a few minutes. This is something that is aligned with what we see. And can we pump up the last question? So the last use case talked about if you need to make a change, and oh boy, if you need to make a change, how long would it take you or to the data team collectively to understand the impact of those changes, which is the most frightening things to not to be aware of. And again, it's a line between taking few weeks to a few months or mid-months or anything else. And at the end of the day, it not only puts a lot of burden on the BI, but it also holds up the business from enjoying the data that they really, really need. So with that said, I'm open for questions or feedback. So thank you for sharing the results.
Amnon, now that was a very impressive demo. The visualization of the complexity of the data lineage that you were showing there really drives home the point of why tools like this are so necessary, and honestly why automation and the evolution of AI has really begun to change the game for these types of massive data sets. So very impressive. Question we have a few questions from the audience. One, is there a possibility to see the cardinalities between two tables?
So the answer is yes. What we do when we extract the metadata, we can do compare. So you can actually see the relationship between the different tables, but also the dependencies between them. You can either see that using the lineage or using the discovery, and we will show the cardinality of this. The answer is yes.
Well, and then another question with regard to scanner support for graph RDF databases in the future.
The answer is yes. It's part of our roadmap. We haven't seen that very popularly. As a matter of fact, when we established the company 4 years ago, we already looked at what's going to be used in the future. But when we met the market and did our product market fit, we talked to about 80 different organizations, and they told us one thing very explicit. Hey guys at Octopai, there's important and there's urgent. And what's urgent is to understand what the heck is going on in our existing landscape. And this is why we have supporting the tools that we do have today. But we already have plans to support newer and more modern BI sources as well.
So another question that we have, do you integrate with any data governance solutions?
So again, the answer is yes. Octopai is an open product in the sense of when we collect the metadata and analyze it, you can use Octopai visualization or app to understand everything that I showed here today. But this is your own, as a client, your own metadata. You can export the metadata and freely inject it to third-party tools. Some of them are data governance, some of them are data catalog. So the answer is yes.
So another question, and this might be our last question. You mentioned that there's a trial that people can easily connect with you on and get a certain amount of look at the solution with regard to their data. But one question that I would have, and it's a question I always like to ask, is so say that all goes very well. How would you suggest then that somebody go beyond that? I mean, how long does it take to implement? What's the biggest challenge to an implementation? I'm curious about that path.
Great. So that's a fair question. And if you look at the three things that we have done at Octopai is that we dare to challenge the status quo. And one of the things that identify Octopai is that we're SaaS, cloud, we're cross-platform, covering the entire landscape, and very, very simple, which means that the outcome is no implementation, no documentation required, no IT capital from your end, no professional services, and no customization, which was a big, big challenge for us. And from your perspective or the client perspective, if they would want to do a trial, this is as close as if they bought the product. They need to just download the extractors that are relevant to those BI systems of which they want us to analyze its metadata. They need to spend 20 minutes, test me, give me the chance to prove it. We've done this hundreds of times before. And once you've done with that, you just click a button, upload the metadata to your instances Octopai, wait 24 hours, and we're going to meet again with your dedicated customer success at Octopai, who will tell you or will share how to use the product just like I did it today. That's it, 20 minutes.
Well, Amnon, that's a very compelling story. We appreciate very much you sharing the Octopai solution and that fine demo. And we are very happy to have shared this with our audience. We're going to put this up on demand on our site, so anybody who may have come in late, or for everybody who registered and didn't get a chance to see it, it's going to be available on demand beginning on Monday on our site. And we certainly are going to be sharing it widely over our entire collection of BI and analytics sites throughout the rest of the year and into 2021. I know it's a challenging time. I know that your solution is probably very much in demand at the moment, given all that's going on in the world. Well, I want to thank you again for being a part of this, and best of luck as we move through this phase.
Thank you very much for having me today. It's an opportunity for us to convey our theme of get modernized, automate yourself. I know people are working from home, so it's a great platform to collaborate, and I look forward to the future. Thank you so much.
Thanks.